And thank you so much for tuning in to SABC, and this is where you should stay. So get comfortable, because we'll be bringing you wall-to-wall coverage of today's election. And of course, we started out in the Eastern Cape. We are in KwaZulu-Natal now, where our reporter Ayanda Mhlongo is at the Results Operation Center in that province. And of course, there were some few hiccups, and let's find out from Ayanda what the latest is on election day. Good morning, Ayanda.
A very good morning to you, Sakina, and good morning to our viewers. Still pretty quiet here at the Results Operating Center. As you said, it's expected to become a hub of activity later on today, with the political parties who will be gathered here, as well as election officials, as those results start coming in, and the political parties will be monitoring those results as they come in. So, of course, later on throughout the day, we'll be giving you all the latest updates from the Results Operating Center. But importantly, Sakina, is that the IEC in KwaZulu-Natal says it's all systems go for today after a 2-day dry run to check its systems. Challenges, of course, for the province, as you know, over the past 2 days of special votes. We've been reporting on demonstrations and certain challenges in terms of access, where in some areas the bridges were washed away after the floods that hit the province of KwaZulu-Natal. But the IEC says that it's happy. They've been able to sort out issues where roads were blocked with the assistance of the municipalities. The roads have been cleared, and so the officials and voters will be able to access all the 4,886 voting stations here in KwaZulu-Natal. Also, a record number of political parties, as we've been reporting, 31 parties that will be contesting here in KZN. So it's going to be a hotly contested election. And of course, when you speak about the province of KwaZulu-Natal, also security becomes another issue. And we know the security forces as well are on standby. They have deployed scores of police officers across the province, with 1,700 that were deployed, in fact, yesterday, also going to some volatile areas. Around 10 areas have been identified as needing priority from the police, which means additional police reinforcements will be deployed to those areas. There has been some unfortunate incidents yesterday where IEC officials were threatened in parts, and in one area of Mapumulo where they were locked inside the voting one of the centers and unable to start their work on time. But the police saying they are out today, ensuring as well that they deal with any areas where there is protest or any demonstrations. They have enough police officers that are going to be out today. We should be getting a briefing very soon as well in terms of how the special voting process went. There were some concerns that the IEC officials, because of those delays, were going to be unable to get to all the 70,000 home visits that were expected to process. But we will be getting an update this morning from the IEC in terms of how the special voting process went. But in terms of all our voting stations, they are scheduled to all open at 7 a.m. this morning. It's all systems go. But of course, we will be chatting with the IEC to get an update from them just after 7 o'clock, whether or not there's been any challenges overnight. One of the areas that, of course, in history in KwaZulu-Natal of great importance is in Ohlange, where in 1994 the former president and the first president of the Democratic South Africa, Nelson Mandela, cast his vote. And that's always been a special area for the people of KwaZulu-Natal, with a great history. It's also, of course, the birthplace of one of the leaders of the African National Congress. And my colleague Sibonga Gonke is coming to us from Ohlange this morning. So let's cross to Sibonga. Sibonga, good morning to you.
A very good morning to you, Ayanda. Like you've just mentioned, we're coming to you live from Ohlange Secondary School. Ohlange is a particular institution that carries a lot of history. As I stand here, I'm standing on a piece of history because this is the exact spot where Dr. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela cast his first vote in the first elections of a democratic South Africa, which he later became the first democratically elected president back in 1994 on the 27th of April. But the this entire institution carries a lot of history because it is the first institution to have been established by a black president, who was the first president of the African National Congress, Dr. John Langalibalele Dube, alongside Umaunogutela Dube, his wife. So there's a great deal of history that currently surrounds us. And what greater moment to be standing here on the 6th general election day. Just to take you through a brief history, I did mention that this was exactly where Dr. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela cast his first vote. And just to step back a bit, so to allow my colleague Nomhle Ngubane to give you a reflection of an excerpt from Nelson Mandela's long walk to freedom after he had cast his ballot. This is one of the excerpts that are found in the book where he says, "When I walked to the voting station, my mind dwelt on the heroes who had fallen so that I might be where I was that day. The men and women who had made the ultimate sacrifice for a cause that was now finally succeeding." This was just a reflection of the day when he came all the way from Pretoria to make sure that he cast his first vote here. It was a significant moment for him because many people we have spoken to over the years have given us different anecdotes and reflections as to how that day was. And one of them was Ubabu Sangweni, who narrated that Dr. Nelson Mandela was quite emotional and nervous on that day. So it was quite an important day for him to cast his first vote exactly where the first president of his party founded this institution. But 25 years later, a lot has happened. And this particular area, we are coming to you from 28 kilometers northwest of Durban. That is where Ohlange is situated in Inanda Township. And this institution continues to operate as a high school. It is the greater part of Ohlange Institute, which is inclusive of 2 other educational facilities. But just to get a sense of how the institution continues to prolong the history of this place, which we've just narrated, I have with me the principal of Ohlange Secondary School, Mr. Siyanda Nxumalo. Very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Sibonga, and good morning to the viewers.
25 years later, we continue to prolong the history and maintain the history of the nourished history of this place. In terms of education, maintaining this place, where are we, as well as the historical education imparted to learners of this institution?
Okay, thank you so much. As you have correctly indicated, that the school was founded by John Langalibalele Dube. And he had the philosophy, head, heart, hand. And the emphasis here was to give learners theory and also to give them humanity or humanism as well as entrepreneurial skills. Now, almost 117 or so years later, the school is now reintroducing subjects that are going to help learners have entrepreneurial skills. Like, for instance, your mechanical technology, civil technology. We are in the midst of Durban. Maritime studies, is a very important subject. So we're trying to have subjects that are going to make learners employers rather than employees.
Thank you so much. We just have to hold it right there because of time, but thank you so much for informing us on the foundations of this institution. If my colleague Nomhle could just pan to the left so that you can see a picture of Dr. Nelson Mandela when he cast his first vote over there. It gives us a brief anecdote of the 27th of April 1994. And lastly, after casting his votes, he visited the grave of the late Dr. John Langalibalele Dube and said, "I have come to report, Mr. President, that South Africa is now free." I guess that is a statement that will continue to roll throughout the day as we continue to monitor various voting stations, particularly paying attention to young people within the 25 years of democracy. It's back to studio for now.